your weapons to Snow!
What's up guys, it's the Film Teen back again with another video, and today we will be discussing the final movie of the Hunger Games franchise, The Hunger Games Mockingjay Part 2! So thank you guys so much for being on this 4-week long journey with me through the entire franchise. If you haven't seen my other videos, I'll try to link the playlist somewhere here so you can watch them. I remember when I first saw this movie, it was at home, not in the theater, and I do remember that I actually ended up falling asleep, and I wasn't interested in rewatching to figure out what happened. But I ended up watching it later when I decided to binge the whole series a few years later, a few months before I ended up making these videos. So I watched it again to make this one, and here you are. But as always, thank you guys so much for liking, commenting, subscribing, and all that YouTube stuff. So anyway, without further ado, let's talk about the final movie of the Hunger Games. This movie starts immediately after the last film left off, so it seems like they probably shot them back to back as well. So Katniss is getting her neck checked out, and Plutarch is trying to figure out what's going on with Peeta. Then the title sequence comes off, and Peeta starts screaming. Wow, it looks like they designed these titles in like 5 seconds. So while the gang plans to take over the Capitol, Gale gets into it with Katniss because he claims to not care whether or not a few Capitol civilians die in the process. I honestly don't know where this sudden anger is coming from. I mean, when has Gale ever tried to hurt anything in these movies? So Katniss tries to speak to some people in District 2, and she gets shot. But it's kind of funny because it's just so awkward and sudden. So then we cut to President Snow at a dinner table with some friends. But I mean, who are these people? Are they all Capitol leaders? Because I've never seen any of them. And what do they do? And just a random thought, why do all the people in the Capitol dress like mini Lady Gagas? I mean, these people at the table don't do it. So if they don't see it on TV, then who started the trend? I want to know. And like it was mentioned in the previous movie, Snow poisons the guy sitting at the dinner table, but only one of them dies. So did everyone just know not to drink from the cups? Did he miss the memo? And who's gonna be controlling the military now? Meanwhile, Katniss is trying to recover from her incident in District 2, so she's back at a hospital near 13. And Joanna Mason shows up, and she is once again saying everything on everybody's mind.
Is that why you hate me?
Partly. You're also a little hard to swallow. The whole tacky romance drama and the defender of the hopeless act, even though it's not an act, which makes it even more unbearable.
So after Joanna and Katniss have a few friendship moments, they head down to Finnick's wedding where he marries his girlfriend Annie. Effie's wigs are back somehow, and I'm honestly getting bored of the movie at this point. It got really slow. But the next day, Katniss decides to sneak out on a ship headed towards District 2. And I'm just gonna point out that Francis Lawrence tries really hard to use all these suspenseful, over-the-shoulder, behind-the-back shots in this movie like they do in Pulp Fiction or Blade Runner, but it really doesn't work here because there's no suspense. And also the camera shakes a little bit every time they do it, so it's just kind of cringy, more than suspenseful. Anyway, the squad members group together and Finnick shows up out of nowhere. Why is he in District 2? Didn't he just get married last night? Oh, and a lot of other forgettable characters are introduced here as well. So, Mahershala Ali comes in and explains to us that there are danger pods around every block in the city that they need to avoid while traveling on foot, essentially creating a sort of Hunger Games-esque environment inside of the Capitol. But this makes me ask a few questions, like why were they traveling on foot? They traveled there in flying jets, why couldn't they just go straight to the mansion in flying jets? Or better yet, if they were worried about being shot down, they could have just sent a robot jet to drop an airstrike. And if they really wanted Katniss to get him killing Snow on camera, then they could have just sent in a team to capture him like they did Peeta. I really don't understand that, but let's keep going anyway. A few minutes later, Peeta shows up at the gang's location, but it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense because they already traveled through quite a few pods, so how did he just easily manage to get there? In a vehicle. And why is he late? I mean, Finnick got there just in time and he was married the last night. Peeta doesn't do anything but sleep in the bed all day. He's so lazy. So Katniss and Peeta's relationship builds up an interesting tension as they struggle between what to do with Peeta because he's not really safe for her yet. But it's not that interesting because in my opinion, this pairing has lost nearly all of their charisma at this point. I mean, Peeta was kind of okay at first as long as he was quiet and friendly, but after he attacked Katniss, he lost all of his redeeming qualities. But in the morning, we get this beautiful wide pan of the crew walking through the abandoned city in their black uniforms. And I'm not gonna lie, this shot got me pretty excited for this movie. I mean, I just wonder, what would happen if it just had an actually interesting story? I mean, I know I'm probably talking about this relatively quickly, but this movie goes by incredibly slow. Anyway, the way that they all walk together single file makes this look like the coolest high school field trip ever. Like an abandoned city with combat uniforms, and there are even machine guns. Speaking of those machine guns, Mahershala Ali's character tries to scout ahead to make sure it's safe and he gets bombed. He's the first to die. Then a random girl steps on some random plate, causing these large gates to enclose them in the courtyard, and a bunch of black goo starts running after them. And the goo kills one of the pointless characters. Oh no! So when the goo leaves, the commander of the squad realizes that Mahershala Ali's character entrusted Katniss with the special security clearance of their electronic map. They hold each other at gunpoint before she eventually lets Katniss have it because she asked nicely. And after they fled the scene, a bunch of peacekeepers rush in and explode the building that they were hiding in. And a broadcast immediately follows that claims that Katniss Everdeen has been neutralized along with Finnick Odair and Peeta Mellark. So the peacekeepers didn't check to confirm if any of the bodies were actually them before they ran that broadcast? Are you serious? That's smart. So anyway, Peeta goes on and on about how he thinks that he deserves to die, and then Gale snaps back offering to fulfill his wishes, and wait a minute, when did Gale become so snappy? I mean, what is all this rage coming from? I get it, he's jealous. Whatever. So they head down to the sewers, and once again I'm starting to get bored because this movie is moving incredibly slowly. And the camera is still shaking and it's also very cringy. And while in the sewers, they get attacked by mutts, and so it actually prompts some pretty cool action from Finnick with his new trident. And then Katniss leaves him to die. Basically, Katniss starts climbing up the ladder while Finnick is being attacked, and she doesn't look back to shoot an arrow, she just leaves. And I'm sorry, but for me, Katniss is officially canceled at this point. I mean, how can you just leave all of your friends in the movie to die? And Finnick was like so cool, even though he was only a real character in like the second movie. So yeah, that's it. Katniss's redeeming qualities are gone. So when they climb out of the sewer, they are met with more soldiers that have the worst aim ever. And the thought crosses my mind, once again, if Katniss was really sent to kill Snow, why couldn't they just send in an airstrike? They wouldn't have to go through all of this drama. Well, later in the movie, District 13 does end up sending an airstrike right outside of President Snow's mansion. And they don't hurt President Snow, they just hurt a bunch of civilians and medics, including Katniss's sister. Snow tells Katniss that the bombs were sent by Coin, and this puts a wedge between Gale and her because Gale doesn't really think there is anything wrong with Coin's actions. So later, Coin arrives in the city and declares herself interim president of Panem and holds a meeting to ask, should they have a symbolic Hunger Games with the children of the capital? So, all of the remaining victors and two girls that I've never seen before are asked to vote on the matter. They vote yes, and President Snow's execution is scheduled later that evening. So when they're getting ready to go execute President Snow, Katniss walks like 2 or 3 miles in a mere 20 seconds. And instead of shooting President Snow, she shoots Coin. Oh my gosh! And it's actually another really funny moment because Snow starts to laugh hysterically as a mob rushes towards him as they beat him to death. And then we get a shot of President Coin's body curled over, and apparently she doesn't bleed. And I feel like it's very ironic that Katniss Everdeen is the girl to save the people of Panem since she could save any of her friends. I mean, Rue, Wyrus, anyone that came out of the Quarter Quell, Finnick. But later back at home, Katniss has a freak out moment when she sees Prim's cat left behind and realizes that her sister has passed away. But it's kind of hilarious to me because Jennifer Lawrence is having like this whole blood, sweat, and tears moment, and the cat is just staring at the camera. In the end, however, Katniss has 2 children with Peeta and they keep living their life. Final rating of this movie? 1 star? I mean, I'm not sure if there's a point to me totally finishing this series because in the end, I didn't really feel like it. I didn't really get an aha moment or think of any interesting ideas while watching it. I mean, that's just me though. I mean, I really can't recommend watching this movie to anyone because it just travels so slowly. But that may just be because I watched the movies individually weeks apart, being that if you were to say binge all 4 of the Hunger Games movies in one day, you'd probably get more enjoyment out of it. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed this content. I mean, if you made it all the way to this end of the video, I mean, just thank you so much. I really hope you had fun with me on this 4-week-long journey because it has been a long time. And I do, once again, have a letterbox if you guys are ever interested. I mean, if you follow me there, you'll probably get a heads up on any video ideas I might have coming up, and you'll see what else I'm watching too, because I really do try to log everything. So once again, thank you so much for watching. If you want to see any of my other Hunger Games videos, I think I'm going to try to plug in the playlist on my channel, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.